a certified divorce real estate expert, which I'll talk a little bit more about at the end of the presentation because it is applicable to what we're talking about today. I'm going to give you guys some facts about divorce. According to the CDC in 2024, the divorce rate was between 40 and 50%, which means either you have gone through a divorce or are going through a divorce, or you know someone who is going through a divorce. In 2021, 59% of divorcing couples owned their home. And the reason that this is important is because it emphasizes how common home ownership is in marriage. And then the final fact is in 2024, 61% of divorces resulted in the sale of a home. Does anyone know why that number is so high? Can you think of what's happening in today's market that would make that a high number? It's the most common thing that's talked about in the news. Our mortgage, interest rates. It's really expensive for someone to be able to refinance a spouse off of the mortgage. They just can't afford to do it. When we're looking at what is, for the last several weeks been closing out at 6.8%, people just can't afford to take a spouse off, so they're forced to have to sell the house in order to cash out the equity. So the first divorce real estate pitfall is misunderstanding your equity. How many people have heard of Zillow? How many people have used Zillow to look at your house value? But when it comes to using online sites to estimate your value, doing it in a divorce case can really cost you a lot of money. If you have a 3,200 square foot home and you've invested $20,000 in your kitchen, Zillow can't account for that. It's just looking at size. And to give you guys an idea of why this is important, I'm going to use my own house. I have a 3,200 square foot home in Sherwood. And I plugged it into Zillow and I said, tell me what it's worth. And it said $816,000. And then I plugged it into Redfin and I said, tell me what it's worth. And it said $826,500. And then I had my own principal broker comp my house out and say, what would this house list for? And he said $799,950. Now, that's a lot of discrepancy, right? If I'm going to my real estate attorney and I'm saying, I want to use Redfin's value to negotiate the money on my house, but it's really worth $27,000 less, and you're using that to negotiate with a spouse who doesn't want to pay you, you have a big problem. You need to know exactly what your numbers are. So you either want to have a real estate agent check it out, or you want to have an appraiser come appraise it. They're going to be about the same in payment, and they're going to give you a much more accurate value on your home. Let's take into consideration other things like closing costs, prorated taxes, realtor fees. You know exactly what number you're working with. So when I sit down and I'm chatting with people about listing their home, we're having a really realistic discussion about value because they need to know and their attorneys need to know. Pitfall number 2, personal property. Personal property is anything that's not attached to your house. It's your couch, it's your rug, it's your dog. It's all of the things that have value in your home that are also being used to negotiate monies in a divorce. You have to have a property plan. I like to have the property divided up right up front, and then people have a game plan of knowing who's gonna take what. I sold a home in Portland this last year, and I was representing the home buyers, and another real estate agent was representing the home seller who was getting a divorce. The wife had already moved out of the house. She had just a few more items to get out, and it had been expressed to me up front that this seller did not want to sell this house. He loved this house. He wanted to stay in this house. And he had a lot of stuff. And I was reassured every day, oh, he's gonna be out, he's gonna be out, he's gonna be out. Do you think he got out? No. So we were getting close to closing, and I got a notification from the agent saying he hasn't gotten all of his stuff out. There was no plan for him on what he was gonna be doing. And that's a big red flag to me as someone who knows that this person doesn't want to sell the house because they're using it to stay in the home. In the end, my clients had to threaten legal action to get him out, and all of that could have been avoided had he been coached up front and there was a plan for his personal property. So real estate pitfall number 3 is property condition, and whether or not you're dealing with a divorce transaction or you're dealing with a regular real estate transaction, property condition is one of the number 1 reasons that a home doesn't sell, paired with price. Property condition is incredibly important. If we go back to where mortgage interest rates are, home buyers don't have a lot of money to fix up the house that you're selling. If you bought your house before 2022, you're sitting on a lot of equity that you didn't have to do anything for, because in 2022, the average house in Oregon gained about 18% in value. When you are getting a divorce, the reason that this one's important is because you don't want to spend a lot of money on something that you're not going to be living in anymore. You're just dividing up this asset and you want to get it gone. Lenders need to know that this property is in good condition. If your roof is 35 years old and failing, they're not going to lend on it. Your property is not matching the other comps in the area, buyers aren't going to pay for it. I sold another home in Portland last year, and the couple was divorcing, and they had done a really phenomenal job updating the inside of their house. It was really cool. But the exterior maintenance on the house had been deferred. So the roof was over 20 years old, and it looked like it was over 30. And there was this huge deck outside that was full of rot, like huge support beams just full of rot. And if I can walk around as a real estate agent and go, that's not good, it's not gonna be good. So I had to coach two parties who were opposing in views on how to get through that. We had a game plan. We were gonna service the roof and then negotiate with the buyer, but the rot had to be fixed on the deck. And I had one party that was like, just do whatever we need to do to get it done. And the other one was like, over my dead body, I'm not doing anything. And it's our job to run interference in those cases, because if they start interacting with each other, do you think any of those repairs are getting done? No. We mitigate that and work with them on that. In the end, they actually sold their house for a great price. They did have to pay for a roof, and the deck didn't come up on the home inspection because we took care of it ahead of time, and they were able to sell the rest of the house as is and not have to fix anything. Who is on the title to your house? Who is vested in the house? Sometimes it's just one spouse. And in Oregon, it takes one person to buy and it takes two to sell. So if both people are listed on the deed, they both need to sign off on all the paperwork for the house. But if you have one spouse on and one spouse not, technically only one spouse has to sign off. What right does the other spouse have? That is where you have to obtain legal counsel. You absolutely need legal counsel in that case, so that you know what your rights are in terms of the value and monies that are in that house. All right, so divorce real estate pitfall number 5 is not hiring a specialized person in this particular category. I joke, don't use your cousin, mostly for the illustration of neutrality and its importance. Let's say that you are amicably getting divorced. Just pretend you're amicably getting divorced, except you, because you're hitting your anniversary today, so you can pretend at this point. And you guys are working through it, and your spouse, you guys decide, yeah, we're gonna use Cousin Bob, and he's gonna sell the house. I'm fine with that. Cousin Bob's gonna give us a discount, it's gonna be just fine. And something happens, and all of a sudden, you and your spouse are not amicable anymore. In fact, they're angry, and they're mad, and they want to take it out on you. Do you think that they're going to trust anything Cousin Bob says? No. Do you think that they're going to want to go with any of Cousin Bob's recommendations? Absolutely not. You need a neutral party who is not going to take one side or the other to sell the house. Their only job is to sell the house. Because when people feel like someone is on someone's side, it makes everything a million times harder. If we go back to the example of the Portland property that had the deck and like the really cool design, those two parties never wanted to see each other ever again, and they had to remain in the same house for a certain period of time. Every time you walked in that house, you could feel the tension. Each party had to be dealt with individually because they just wanted to take the other one out. And it was that way until we finalized the transaction. But because they knew that I wasn't on one or the other side, we were able to get the transaction done and have a really successful closing, and the buyer never knew any different. So neutrality is incredibly important. So when we talk about what I do as a certified divorce real estate expert, there are only 3 of us in the Portland metropolitan area that actually have this particular designation. And there are other agents out there that will take like a 1-day class and say, I know how to handle divorce real estate. That is not the case. This is ongoing, constant education, being taught how to testify in court, work directly with attorneys. And we're trained to be neutral. We're trained to learn how to mitigate conflict as a neutral. And I think that that is the most important thing, because you can send out attorney emails and fancy verbiage all day long, but are you gonna actually be able to pull two parties together that just wanna take each other through the mud? As a certified divorce real estate expert, we have a process that we go through to get everybody from start to finish. I absolutely sell traditional real estate in my business. It's still a big portion of my business, but this specification came about because I saw the opportunity to help people in a different way. When you buy a house, typically you're excited. You're like, yes, I'm getting married, I'm having a kid, I'm upsizing, I'm moving a family member in. When you sell in a divorce case, you are not excited. It's just so important that when you are making a decision this big for your financial future, you really are hiring someone that understands the process and what it's like to work with those people. So some of these pitfalls can apply to traditional real estate, but they are extremely intensified when you are in a divorce transaction. Do you have any questions for me? Yes?
Quick question.
Yeah.
What if the wife had a favorite realtor and the husband had a favorite realtor? How do you?
Yeah, so that's a really good question, and that happens quite a bit, actually. In those cases, especially when there's attorneys involved, they'll actually ask for 3 names, and each party will get to decide from the 3 names who they want to use. Sometimes the attorneys will also assign, like if they just can't reach agreement, the attorney will say, we just want to go with this person. But a lot of times they like to provide 3 names of real estate agents because they're not gonna agree on using each other's friends. That happens a lot. Yeah. Yes?
So the certification, and who certifies you and what is, you know, I mean, like I'm a CPA, right?
Yeah.
So we have the American Institute, the International, all these things. What's your certification from? And
Yeah.
who does that?
So it's through the Alumni Institute.
Which is-
And the Alumni Institute is a divorce certification program that was actually created by a real estate agent and an attorney. And you go through 3 months of education, that's all attorney based. And then in order to maintain the certification, you have to continue to go through education. So we have monthly case studies, but it's a very exclusive institution that educates realtors on divorce real estate and how to work directly with attorneys. And it's really successful and it's been great. Okay, all the questions, thank you.